Should we jump into our thoughts around the ending and what we actually believe is going on with the world? Because they still kind of left some loose ends out there so that you may not fully all think it's the same thing.
Let's start there. So basically, the ending is a game with the Queen of Hearts, and it seems deceptively simple. They just have to play a game of croquet, and the Queen of Hearts is like, it doesn't matter who wins as long as we finish 3 rounds of croquet. But if you follow the show closely, the heart games are always the most difficult ones because they require some kind of personal introspection or like sacrifice, mostly sacrifice. And so while they're playing the croquet game, basically she's somehow probing his mind and like putting in these different scenarios to try to trick Arisu and Usagi into thinking that they are in some kind of alternate explanation to where they are. And that ranges from they're like in a sci-fi simulation to like they're in an insane asylum. But basically the idea is to get them to give up playing the game before it's over. And once they finish the game, the whole world basically ends, and anyone who's surviving gets to make the decision of if they want to stay in Borderland or not. And once the decision is made and everything's wrapped up, they end up back in allegedly the real world, where they show that Tokyo was hit by a meteor. And like all the people who were in the game were people injured by the meteor. And so they were stuck between life and death. And the games in Borderland were their way of fighting their way out. And something important about all the people who were actually stuck is these are people who were dissatisfied with their lives. So they had a reason to not come back, but also a reason to come back. And Borderlands was almost like proof that they deserve to continue living.
Let's start with Queen of Hearts game. That was the first game where I was like really tripped out and kind of confused about what world they were really in. She transported them into that insane asylum situation. That was the first time where I genuinely was almost tricked. And I was like, so this whole thing literally is just Arisu on a mental breakdown, and he imagined this whole world and it's all just him. I was really believing it. And then when it was starting to like crumble and you realize that it was a simulation that she created, probably through hallucinations, because they implied that she drugged them because she kept trying to push them to drink the tea.
Oh.
Yeah. So I think that's how they were trying to explain it. I was just like very confused when that whole mental institution thing came out.
I thought it was really fun because part of the journey is trying to figure out where they are. So the very end, I feel like the people who wrote the show were like, let's fuck with the audience. Like, we're going to give them this like really crazy opening alternate universe where they're in a simulation. And then we're going to slowly bring it to something that's like reality. Because even in the end, the real end where they're back in reality, I'm like, it's a little preposterous. Like a meteor hit Tokyo, like right at Shibuya Crossing. Like, I don't know about that. Or it didn't hit them at Shibuya Crossing, but like the blast radius hit them at the crossing. You got to that ending and you were like, is this the real ending? And then at the very end, they have that Joker card. So you're kind of like, well, what is really happening here?
I don't think this is the end at all. I think this is just another simulation or game in and of itself to make you believe that you're out. They would not show the Joker card if it was actually over. And every time I finish a season or a series of something, I go down the Reddit rabbit hole.
Oh, same.
And they were saying that because this series is based on a manga series. So they were like, Joker actually was like a key player in the manga. So theoretically, if he hasn't even shown up yet in the show, and then they show his card at the end, you would think that the games are not over and they're going to just like take it to a different angle now. And yeah, it just felt too clean. Felt really clean to me if that was the actual end. Oh, they all got out and they're all just have a second chance at life now. And Arisu and Usagi have this weird connection they can't explain, that they're still going to be able to like be friends or lovers or whatever in this real world. I'm like,
There are definitely some plot holes, I think, in terms of believing whether or not the end is reality or not. I also did the same thing, and what I read was that there's like a second version of the manga, but basically like Arisu ends up back in Borderlands because he has another like accident that puts him into like a coma or something like that. What other thing that I found suspicious was that Anne didn't die. Like they showed her back in IRL, but big spoiler, she dies, and she's unable to say whether or not she wants to stay at the end. So she's dead, so she shouldn't be alive.
Yeah, I agree with that. She died a long time ago. I mean, it was such a slow death, But I read in one Reddit theory, they were saying because they spent this whole like moment where Queena held her hand and she said like, let's leave, let's go together. So I think the Reddit theory was trying to imply that Anne was like very close to death, but maybe she technically wasn't dead yet by the time that
Oh.
Queena took her by the hand to say, let's leave. Let's circle back to the near-death experience explanation. If you were in this near-death experience and your mind came up with this insane death games world for you to survive in order to prove you want to live, do you think you would live?
Like, do I think I would make it to the end of the games?
Do you think you would fight for your life? That's what they are suggesting all these games really is your mind and your heart choosing to fight your body, essentially, to like come back to life.
Honestly, it's so hard. I want to say that I wouldn't, and I would just do as many crazy things as possible before I get lasered. But on the other hand, I also feel like I don't want to die in any way, shape, or form. And that brings out, I think, like a different side of you that most people don't really know because you don't really think about it. I think about the episode where Arisu basically kills his friends, the whatever hearts game that they were in. It's kind of like that. If you asked me like on any given day, I'd be like, yeah, I'd probably kill myself and let my friends live. But like in reality, when push comes to shove, like, is that the decision that you're going to make? Like, regardless how difficult it is? I don't know.
For me, honestly, I think about this the same way I think about scary movies. And if I were a character in a scary movie, it'd be like, no, I'd be dead real fast. I 100% agree that there is a side to every human and every living thing, right? Because you value life, that you will probably do crazier things than you think you would to try to keep your life. But at the same time, these games were insane. They were insane. They were challenging in so many different ways. Like physically, I couldn't do a lot of the things that they did to stay alive. Like I'm a really weak swimmer. There are a lot of like water-based things. I don't know. And then all the mind ones, I'm like, I'm sorry. Is everyone who's winning just like a fucking genius?
Oh, I would die.
One of the face card games was all like about, it was all like mental math and also like probabilistic game theory stuff. And I was like, dude, I'd be dead. First round, I'd be dead. So it's not that I don't think I value my life and I would want to like fight as hard as I could for my life. But I'm like, if this is the kind of shit my brain came up with to try to test me to see if I care enough to live, I don't know that I would live.
Yeah, so put the question that way. I would probably try as hard as possible to survive, but for sure, any of those games that required any like brain power, like the one where they were doing the maze and then like one of the doors is like just fire. I don't know where to go. Like
that was the first game.
Was it the first game?
The one in the rooms that they open doors. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was Arisu's first game.
I would have died immediately. Yeah.